These are the 15 most controversial Best Picture wins in Academy Award history. Decisions that sparked outrage, revealed industry biases, and continue to fuel debates decades later. The Academy Awards exist to honor the best films of each year, but politics, fear, aggressive campaigning, and plain bad judgment have repeatedly pushed voters toward the safe option instead of the masterpiece. Dances with Wolves vs. Goodfellas. Kevin Costner's sweeping frontier epic took home 7 Oscars at the 1991 ceremony, including Best Picture and Best Director.
And this year, the Oscar for directing goes to Kevin Costner for Dances with Wolves.
While Martin Scorsese's crime classic walked away with exactly 1 trophy, Joe Pesci for Best Supporting Actor.
The Oscar goes to Joe Pesci in Goodfellas.
Both films earned critical praise when they came out, but here's what happened in the years since. Goodfellas became legendary, while Dances with Wolves faded into the background. The American Film Institute ranks Goodfellas among their top 100 films of all time. Dances with Wolves didn't make the list. Rotten Tomatoes tells the same story. Goodfellas sits at 96%, while Dances with Wolves landed at 81%. Filmmaker Guillermo del Toro went so far as to call Goodfellas a perfect movie. Several factors explain the upset, and none of them have to do with which film was actually better. Some historians suggest the Academy wanted to make amends for Hollywood's historical mistreatment of Native Americans by rewarding a sympathetic portrayal, and the film fit perfectly into what Oscar voters traditionally gravitate toward: a traditional, feel-good epic with accessible storytelling and sweeping cinematography. Goodfellas offered none of that comfort. The film was gritty and violent, and Scorsese's direction pushed formal innovation in ways that made some voters deeply uncomfortable. What it did do was revolutionize the crime genre with kinetic energy, casual brutality, and darkly comic tone that influenced an entire generation of filmmakers who came after. The Academy picked the safe, old-fashioned epic instead of the modern masterpiece that would define crime cinema for decades. Dances with Wolves has largely disappeared from cultural conversation, while Goodfellas continues to be studied in film schools and referenced by filmmakers worldwide. The win shows a recurring pattern: the Academy rewarding respectability over innovation.
Actually, sir, I'm here at my own request.
Why?
I've always wanted to see the frontier.
You want to see the frontier?
Yes, sir. Before it's gone.
Driving Miss Daisy vs. Do the Right Thing. The 1990 Best Picture ceremony delivered what historians now recognize as a defining moment in the Academy's troubled relationship with films about race in America. Driving Miss Daisy won the top prize for its gentle tale of friendship between an elderly white woman and her African-American driver, a nostalgic story set in the South during the Civil Rights era that reassures viewers prejudice can be overcome through personal kindness and patience. But here's the thing: the controversy isn't just about what won.
The Oscar goes to
Driving Miss Daisy, Richard Zanuck. Thank you, Academy.
Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, one of the most urgent and culturally explosive films of the decade, was completely shut out of the Best Picture race, and the omission was so egregious that actress Kim Basinger called it out during the live Oscar telecast. Presenting an award, she deviated from the script to criticize the Academy, saying the nominees were great, but there is one film missing: Do the Right Thing.
We've got 5 great films here, and they're great for one reason: because they tell the truth. But there is one film missing from this list that deserves to be on it, because, ironically, it might tell the biggest truth of all, and that's Do the Right Thing.
Film scholars have spent decades analyzing this decision as revealing the Academy's preference for what they call comfortable racism over confrontational reality. Lee's film forced audiences to grapple with systemic racism, police violence, and simmering racial tensions without offering easy resolutions. Driving Miss Daisy presented a fantasy where racism is merely interpersonal awkwardness that gets resolved through mutual understanding, and the Academy's choice signaled a refusal to engage with the reality of race relations in America.
Foley said the silliest thing the other day.
Well, what did he say?
Well, he was talking about Martin Luther King. I guess you know him, don't you?
Martin Luther King? No, I don't know him.
But you've heard him preach.
Oh, yes. Same way you have, though, on the TV.
I think he's wonderful.
What voters preferred was a narrative of interracial harmony that required no structural change, and this decision gets cited by film historians as one of the Academy's biggest missteps. The pattern it established would repeat itself almost exactly 30 years later with Green Book, proving that when faced with a choice between a film that comforts and one that challenges, the Academy retreats to comfort every single time.
Man, I gotta go. I'm working.
Doctor, this is the mayor talking.
All right.
Doctor?
Come on, what?
Always do the right thing.
That's it?
That's it.
I got it. I'm gone.
The English Patient versus Fargo and Jerry Maguire. The English Patient swept the 1997 Oscars with 9 wins, including Best Picture and Best Director for Anthony Minghella. And in the nearly 3 decades since, it has become something approaching a punchline in discussions of Oscar mistakes.
And the Oscar goes to The English Patient, Saul Zapp.
I said my cup was full before. Now it runneth over.
Critics now describe the film as dull, overlong, and emotionally inert. Time magazine and other outlets have labeled it one of the worst Best Picture winners, a film that exemplifies prestige without substance, and it's become synonymous with the kind of Oscar bait that wins awards based on surface respectability but leaves no lasting cultural impact. The film gained peculiar notoriety through a Seinfeld episode where Elaine is the only person who dares to say she hates it, and the joke resonated with audiences because many viewers secretly agreed. The joke worked because it tapped into widespread feeling that The English Patient was more endurance test than masterpiece.
And I hope you're watching the close because I can't take my eyes off the passion.
No, I can't do this anymore. I can't. It's too long. Quit telling your stupid story about the stupid desert and just die already. Die!
Elaine, you don't like the movie?
I hate it! I'm going to hell!
And that same year, the Coen brothers' Fargo earned a nomination that has since proven to have a far stronger cultural legacy. Fargo gets studied in film schools, inspired a critically acclaimed television series, and stands widely recognized as one of the best films of the 1990s. Film historians point to this win as exemplifying the Academy's tendency to mistake length and scope for depth and prestige for quality, and The English Patient checked all the traditional Oscar boxes: period setting, sweeping romance, war backdrop, important themes, but lacked the substance and originality to justify the accolades. The film's failure to maintain respect over time highlights a recurring Academy pattern. Voters reward films that feel important in the moment but lack the genuine artistic innovation to remain relevant, and The English Patient won 9 Oscars while Fargo is what film students watch and filmmakers reference. The Academy chose spectacle over craft, and the verdict of history has not been kind.
Don't talk.
You speak so many bloody languages and you never want to talk.
Quit telling your stupid story about the stupid desert and just die already. Die!
The King's Speech versus The Social Network. Critics and Academy voters experienced 2 completely different Best Picture races in 2011, and the gap between them revealed a chasm between critical consensus and voter preferences that had rarely been so stark. David Fincher's The Social Network swept nearly every major critics award, won the Golden Globe for Best Picture Drama, and ranked #1 on the IndieWire Critics poll. The King's Speech, a polished period drama about King George VI overcoming his stutter, placed 28th on critics' lists. And then came Oscar night, when The King's Speech won Best Picture. The discrepancy reveals how Oscar campaigning can override critical consensus completely.
And the Oscar goes to The King's Speech. Ian Canning, Emil Sherman, and Gareth Unwin producers.
The Social Network captured the zeitgeist of 2010, documenting Facebook's creation with prescient understanding of social media's impact on society. And the film, written by Aaron Sorkin and directed by David Fincher, gets described by critics as nearly perfect, tightly constructed, brilliantly acted, and culturally resonant in ways that continue to deepen over time. Facebook evolved into Meta and continued dominating headlines, which only increased the social network's relevance. The film predicted the toxic dynamics of social media culture that would come to define the 2010s, while The King's Speech offered well-crafted but utterly conventional storytelling. One critic quipped that it felt like the Best Picture of 1983, not 2010. Director Tom Hooper's subsequent work makes the upset even more baffling. His critically savage Cats has made his Best Director win over Fincher appear increasingly indefensible, and the Academy chose the safe period piece over the timely, innovative examination of how technology was fundamentally reshaping human connection. The win exemplifies what scholars identify as the Academy's tendency to play it safe when confronted with challenging, contemporary subject matter. Critics overwhelmingly recognized The Social Network as the superior and more important film, but voters chose comfort over confrontation, and the gap between what film historians value and what the Academy rewards has never been clearer.
Mark! Mark!
He's wired in.
Sorry?
He's wired in.
Is he?
Yes.
You issued 24 million new shares of stock.
You signed the papers.
You set me up. You're gonna blame me because you were the business head of the company and you made a bad business deal with your own company?
It's gonna be like I'm not a part of Facebook. Not signing those papers.
We will get the signature.
And I'll bet what you hated the most is that they identified me as a co-founder of Facebook, which I am. You better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm not coming back for 30%. I'm coming back for everything.
Shakespeare in Love versus Saving Private Ryan. The 1999 Best Picture upset represents the moment when Oscar campaigning became more important than the films themselves, and what happened fundamentally altered the nature of the Academy Awards. Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan was the overwhelming favorite to win Best Picture. The war epic earned widespread critical acclaim and stands now as one of the greatest war films ever made, with an opening D-Day sequence that redefined how combat could be portrayed on screen. The film carried both artistic merit and massive commercial success, and when the envelope opened to reveal Shakespeare in Love as the winner, collective gasps were heard around the movie-going world.
And the Oscar goes to Shakespeare in Love. David Carpet, Donna Gelati, Harvey Weinstein, Edward Zwick.
Film industry analysts point to Harvey Weinstein's unprecedented Oscar campaign for Shakespeare in Love as the explanation. Weinstein's Miramax studio launched a systematic, aggressive marketing blitz that included lavish parties for voters, saturation advertising in trade publications, and whisper campaigns suggesting that Saving Private Ryan was really only good for its first 15 minutes. The campaign was relentless, calculated, and ultimately successful in swaying voters away from the critical consensus, and this win marks a turning point that scholars identify as the moment the Academy Awards stopped being primarily about merit. What it became instead was a contest to see which studio could wage the most effective campaign, and Shakespeare in Love is a charming romantic comedy, but fundamentally lightweight entertainment that benefited from marketing muscle rather than artistic superiority. Saving Private Ryan is a definitive war masterpiece that changed how warfare could be depicted on screen and created sequences that remain unmatched in their visceral impact. Industry insiders recognize this result as the victory of the Weinstein campaign machine over organic artistic support, and it introduced a cynicism to the awards that persists today, where voters often select the film they saw the most, or the talent that played the game best, rather than making pure assessments of quality. The win remains one of the most infamous in Oscar history, proof that muscle can defeat masterpiece.
Romeo, Romeo, a young man of Verona, a comedy by William Shakespeare.
My lady! Oh, my lady, my love!
If they find you here, they will kill you.
Bring them with a word.
Oh, not for the world.
Out of Africa versus The Color Purple. The 1986 Oscars produced one of the most painful and controversial snubs in Academy history, and the accusations of systemic racism that followed reverberate to this day. Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple received 11 Oscar nominations and won 0. This wasn't merely a loss, but a historic shutout, and only one other film in Oscar history has been nominated for 11 awards and won nothing. The turning point. The total rejection sparked immediate backlash, with the NAACP accusing the Academy of orchestrating a deliberate blackout to prevent black-led projects from winning. Adding insult to the snub, Spielberg wasn't even nominated for Best Director despite receiving a Directors Guild nomination, a controversial and highly unusual omission that suggested deliberate exclusion rather than mere oversight. Sidney Pollack's Out of Africa won Best Picture that year and took home 7 Oscars, but film critics now view it as prestige cinema at its most emotionally inert.
The envelope, please. The winner is Out of Africa.
A film criticized for romanticizing colonialism that has largely faded from cultural conversation. The Color Purple endured as a cultural touchstone, getting adapted into a successful Broadway musical and a 2023 film, while Out of Africa became a relic of 1980s Oscar prestige. Film historians point to this shutout as emblematic of the Academy's systemic bias, and even when films about the Black experience receive nominations, the Academy has repeatedly found ways to deny them recognition. The pattern continued through subsequent decades, with films featuring Black stories and performers consistently nominated but rarely winning the top prizes. The controversy illustrates what scholars identify as the Academy's discomfort with Black narratives that center Black characters and perspectives, and Out of Africa offered a safe, white-centered colonial romance, while The Color Purple confronted painful realities of racism, sexism, and abuse within the Black community. The Academy chose safety and turned its back on the superior film. 11 nominations with 0 wins tells you everything about what the Academy valued in 1986.
I should have locked you up and just let you out to work and
jail you plan for me is the one you're gonna rot in.
I knocked you up on...
Everything you've done to me, already done to you.
I'm poor, black. I may even be ugly, but dear God, I'm here.
The Shape of Water. Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water took home Best Picture at the 2018 ceremony for its fantasy romance about a woman who falls in love with an amphibian creature, winning 4 Oscars total, including Best Director, and the win immediately sparked debate about whether the film merited the top prize.
And the Oscar goes to The Shape of Water.
Film critics and audiences raised fundamental questions about the film's quality, with many viewers feeling The Shape of Water simply wasn't strong enough to deserve Best Picture. What critics point to is a thin narrative elevated by visual beauty but lacking in substance, and the film divided audiences in ways that few Best Picture winners do. Passionate defenders appreciate its fairy tale qualities and del Toro's visual imagination, but substantial criticism came from detractors who found it overly whimsical, sentimental, and lacking the depth expected of Best Picture winners. The controversy got compounded by plagiarism accusations that surfaced during the awards campaign, and while these allegations were ultimately dismissed, they added another layer of controversy to an already divisive win. Film historians note that The Shape of Water defeated Jordan Peele's Get Out, a genuine cultural phenomenon that redefined horror cinema and sparked nationwide conversations about race in America. Get Out represented a rare opportunity to reward a horror film while recognizing the most zeitgeist-defining work of its year, and the film achieved what few horror movies ever have: mainstream critical acclaim, box office, success, and genuine cultural impact. Critics point out that the Academy chose del Toro's more traditionally artistic fantasy over Peele's culturally significant genre work, and this decision fits the recurring pattern of the Academy favoring films that look and feel like Oscar winners over films that actually push boundaries and reshape cultural conversation. The Shape of Water remains one of the more divisive Best Picture choices of the 21st century. Del Toro's craftsmanship is undeniable, but the consensus among critics who question the win is that more deserving, more culturally important contenders were passed over for a film that simply wasn't as good as its competition.
Get out.
Sorry, man.
Get out! Yo!
Rose, we gotta go.
Is everything okay?
Rose, the keys. Just get the keys.
I don't know where they are.
Rose?
Sink into the floor.
Wait.
Sink.
Mom, it's a terrible thing to waste.
Annie Hall versus Star Wars. The 1978 ceremony forced the Academy to answer a fundamental question about the nature of cinema itself. Can populist blockbusters also be art? The Academy's answer was an emphatic no. Woody Allen's Annie Hall won Best Picture over Star Wars, the highest-grossing film of all time, and a movie that fundamentally reshaped the film industry.
And the winner is Annie Hall, Charles H. Joffrey.
Annie Hall stands critically revered as a masterpiece of intellectual comedy, but Star Wars changed everything about how movies were made, marketed, and experienced. And film critic Roger Ebert noted the distinction that drove the Academy's choice. Star Wars tapped into what Ebert called pulp fantasies, while Annie Hall represented emotional and intellectual maturity, and the Academy chose sophistication over spectacle, urban neurosis over space opera. Film historians now recognize this win as creating what scholars call the genre ghetto, the systematic exclusion of science fiction and fantasy films from serious consideration for top awards. Star Wars wasn't just entertainment, but a revolution in special effects, pioneering new filming techniques and creating a cultural phenomenon that would span generations. The film invented the modern blockbuster and proved that popular cinema could also be artistically innovative, winning 7 Oscars that night, but all in technical categories. The message was clear: spectacle films could win for effects and sound, but they weren't serious enough for Best Picture or Best Director. This bias would persist for decades, denying recognition to groundbreaking genre films until The Return of the King finally broke through in 2003. And even then, many argued the Academy was honoring the trilogy as a whole, rather than embracing fantasy as a legitimate art form. Annie Hall is brilliant filmmaking, but Star Wars redefined what cinema could be, and created a template that dominates filmmaking to this day. The Academy chose the film that made them feel sophisticated over the film that made audiences feel wonder, and in doing so, they revealed a snobbery that has damaged the Academy's credibility for generations by suggesting that popular success and artistic achievement cannot coexist, a proposition that Star Wars itself thoroughly disproved.
I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. We meet again at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
A master of evil, Darth.
Moonlight. Moonlight's Best Picture win at the 2017 ceremony should have been triumphant. The first LGBTQ film with an all-black cast to take home the top prize. What happened instead was the most chaotic moment in Oscar telecast history, combined with legitimate debate about whether the film itself deserved the honor. The envelope mix-up is legendary by now. Presenters Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway got handed the wrong envelope and announced La La Land as the winner, and the La La Land producers were mid-acceptance speech when the mistake got discovered and corrected. The world watched as the award was literally taken from one film and given to another, but the chaos overshadowed a more substantive controversy.
And the Academy Award for Best Picture.
Come on. La La Land.
You kicked this off, and Damien Chazelle, we're standing on your shoulders. We lost, by the way, but,
What?
you know.
Guys, I'm sorry. No, there's a mistake. Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture. This is not a joke. Moonlight has won Best Picture. Moonlight, Best Picture.
Film critics have raised serious questions about whether Moonlight's quiet, intimate storytelling was truly Best Picture caliber, or whether it benefited from the Academy's eagerness to make a statement about diversity and inclusion during the Oscars So White era. Critics questioning the win point to the film's narrow scope and minimal narrative momentum, and while the cinematography is beautiful and the performances are carefully crafted, it's a deliberately small-scale character study. Historians note there's a legitimate debate about whether the Academy rewarded artistic merit or symbolic importance. Defenders argue it's a subtle masterpiece that captures the experience of growing up black and gay in Miami with unprecedented sensitivity, but detractors suggest the film has been overpraised and that the historic nature of its win has prevented honest, critical assessment of its actual quality. What's certain is that Moonlight's legacy got forever complicated. The film achieved a historic first for representation, but it did so under circumstances that overshadowed the achievement and amid questions about whether the film itself could carry the weight of that historic moment.
You're the only man that's ever touched me. You're the only one. I haven't really touched anyone since.
Ordinary People versus Raging Bull. The Academy faced a choice between comfort and greatness in 1981, and comfort won, while film historians have spent 4 decades lamenting the decision. Robert Redford's directorial debut, Ordinary People, won Best Picture and Best Director over Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull, and the decision has become increasingly indefensible with each passing year.
And the winner is... This is the time I'm right. Ordinary People.
Raging Bull stands now widely recognized not just as the best film of the 1980s, but as one of the greatest films ever made, ranking at number 4 on the American Film Institute's list of the greatest American films. Film scholars have extensively analyzed why this upset occurred, and the reasons reveal the Academy's fundamental biases in stark terms. Ordinary People is what critics call an actor's movie, focused on emotional interplay, therapeutic breakthroughs, and the kind of careful character work that actors in the Academy's largest voting branch appreciate. The film follows a suburban family dealing with grief and offers emotional catharsis and resolution. Raging Bull is a director's movie, focused on visual language, brutal alienation, and visceral violence. Shot in stark black and white, the film follows one of the most unlikable protagonists in cinema history, through a story that offers no redemption or comfort, and the film doesn't embrace viewers but assaults them with its unflinching portrayal of masculine violence and self-destruction. The Academy's demographic breakdown explains the result completely. Actors dominate the voting body and favor emotional, character-driven narratives that reaffirm the industry's values, and when faced with a choice between a film that validated their craft and a film that made them deeply uncomfortable, they chose validation. Film historians note this loss cemented the narrative that Scorsese was too edgy for the Academy, a reputation that would haunt him for another 26 years, until he finally won for The Departed in 2007, a film widely recognized as a consolation prize for his earlier, superior work. The verdict of time has been absolute. Raging Bull gets studied in film schools worldwide as a masterpiece of cinematic technique, while Ordinary People is largely forgotten except as the film that beat Raging Bull. The Academy chose nice over great, and the mistake becomes more glaring with each passing decade.
Dad, I quit the swim team.
What?
Carol thought I knew. Of course, why wouldn't I? It happened over a month ago.
Why didn't you tell us, Connie?
I don't know. I didn't think it mattered.
No, that was meant for me, Calvin. It's really important to try to hurt me, isn't it?
Don't you have that backwards?
Oh, and how do I hurt you? By embarrassing you in front of a friend? Poor Beth, she has no idea what her son is up to. He lies and she believes every word of it.
I didn't lie.
You did. You lied every time you came into this house at 6:30.
Honora. Sean Baker's Honora took home Best Picture at the 2025 ceremony, along with wins for Best Editing and Best Actress for Mikey Madison, with Baker frequenting the Oscar stage more than any other winner that night.
And the Oscar goes to? Are they playing us off?
No. Oh, Honora.
The film tells the story of a sex worker, and while it garnered strong support in festival circuits and among independent film critics, the win has sparked immediate controversy about whether it represents genuine artistic achievement or the Academy rewarding a trendy choice. Critics questioning the win point to what they identify as a minimal storyline lacking the narrative complexity expected of Best Picture winners, and the film has been characterized by some observers as overrated, a festival favorite that benefited from buzz and momentum rather than substantive filmmaking. The controversy represents a recurring Academy pattern that film historians have identified over decades. Voters reward films that make them feel sophisticated and connected to independent cinema, even when those films may not have the depth or cultural impact to justify Best Picture honors. And Baker is respected in independent film circles for his work exploring marginalized communities, while Madison delivered a committed performance that earned widespread praise. What critics note is a disconnect between the film's acclaim within specific critical bubbles and its actual quality when measured against historical Best Picture standards. The win is so recent that definitive historical assessment hasn't yet solidified, but early critical response suggests skepticism about whether Honora will be remembered as a worthy winner or as another example of the Academy getting swept up in festival buzz. The pattern is familiar to Oscar historians. A small independent film gains momentum through festival screenings, critical tastemakers champion it as urgent and important, and the Academy eager to appear in touch with cutting-edge cinema awards it despite questions about its substantive merit. Time will reveal whether those questions were justified, or whether Honora represents genuinely important filmmaking that broader audiences will eventually recognize.
Меня зовут Нора. Я очень рада наконец с вами познакомиться. Это такая часть бешеной Ивана и часть вашей семьи.
Ivan is not your husband. And you're not part of this family.
Unforgiven versus Malcolm X. Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven won Best Picture at the 1993 ceremony, taking home 4 Oscars including Best Director.
And the Oscar for the Best Picture of 1992 goes to Clint Eastwood.
And it's a solid Western that deconstructs the mythology of the Old West with strong performances throughout. That same year saw the release of Spike Lee's Malcolm X, and film historians argue the Academy made the wrong choice. Malcolm X is what critics identify as superior filmmaking in virtually every dimension, a masterful biographical epic starring Denzel Washington in what many consider his greatest performance. The film offers profound depth, sustained engagement, and demonstrates the art form of cinema at its highest level through its ambitious scope and uncompromising vision, and Washington's performance is transformative. The actor takes viewers through Malcolm's complete evolution, from street hustler to Nation of Islam spokesman to independent voice for Black empowerment, and the film captures the complexity of its subject and the turbulent era he lived through with a level of nuance and power that Unforgiven, despite its virtues, simply doesn't match. Film scholars note that Unforgiven is the safer choice, a Western by an established white director that fits comfortably within Academy preferences and genre traditions. Malcolm X was challenging, urgent, and centered on Black history in ways that required voters to confront uncomfortable truths about America's racial violence and the ongoing struggle for Black liberation, and the Academy rewarded solid craftsmanship over visionary filmmaking. What they chose was a familiar genre exercise over a definitive biographical epic, and in doing so, they missed the opportunity to honor one of the most important films about race, identity, and resistance in American cinema history. This decision follows the pattern film historians have documented repeatedly throughout Oscar history. When faced with a choice between the comfortable and the challenging, the Academy retreats to comfort, and Unforgiven allowed voters to appreciate a genre they understood being deconstructed in ways that felt literary and respectable, while Malcolm X demanded they reckon with a revolutionary figure whose legacy still provokes debate, whose story indicts American racism in ways that period Westerns, however well-crafted, simply don't.
Hey, that's enough. I want these people moved out of here.
Fruit of Islam are disciplined men. They haven't broken any laws. Yeah, that's your headache, Captain. But if Brother Johnson dies, I pity you, Doctor.
He'll live. He's getting the best care we can give.
Now let's disperse this mob.
Forrest Gump versus Pulp Fiction versus The Shawshank Redemption. Film historians cite 1994 as potentially the greatest year for American cinema in the 1990s, and the Best Picture race featured 3 distinct masterpieces representing 3 radically different visions of what cinema could be. Forrest Gump was the boomer nostalgia trip, optimistic and technically innovative with pioneering visual effects, but thematically conservative, offering a revisionist history of America where a simple man stumbles through decades of turmoil and everything ultimately turns out fine. Pulp Fiction was the Gen X disruptor, non-linear, violent, ironic, and cool. The film changed the way movies were made and marketed, revolutionizing independent cinema and introducing a new grammar of storytelling that would influence filmmakers for decades. And The Shawshank Redemption was the classical humanist drama, a timeless story of hope and friendship that has since become one of the most beloved films of all time, consistently ranking at the top of audience polls. Forrest Gump won Best Picture, while Tom Hanks took Best Actor, and the film steamrolled the competition with 6 total Oscars.
The Oscar goes to Forrest Gump, Wendy Finneman, Steve Tisch, and Steve Starkey, producers.
Film historians note that in the decades since, critical opinion has turned sharply against Gump's victory, with many scholars now viewing the win as sentimentality defeating art. Pulp Fiction fundamentally changed cinema, proving that non-linear narratives could achieve both critical acclaim and commercial success. The film created a new template for independent filmmaking and demonstrated that cool, ironic distance could coexist with genuine emotional stakes. And The Shawshank Redemption had the most enduring popular appeal, though it was a box office disappointment initially, with its reputation growing steadily to represent the kind of classical storytelling that transcends its era. Critics point out that Forrest Gump reinforced the status quo while Pulp Fiction pushed the medium forward, and the vitriol toward Gump has increased over time as scholars re-examine its politics. The way it presents American history as a series of accidents that a passive white man wanders through, the way it suggests that success comes to those who don't think too hard or question authority, these elements have aged poorly. This is the rare case where film historians acknowledge that any of the 3 films could have justifiably won, but as time passes, it becomes increasingly clear that Pulp Fiction and Shawshank have had far greater lasting impact on how we make and think about movies. Gump represents the Academy's tendency to reward films that make voters feel good, rather than films that challenge them or reshape the medium, and it's comfortable, reassuring, and ultimately conservative in its worldview. Exactly what the Academy prefers.
My given name is Benjamin Buford Blue. People call me Bubba.
Congratulations. How do you feel?
I gotta pee.
I believe he said he had to go pee.
My name's Forrest Gump. People call me Forrest Gump.
Chicago versus Gangs of New York. Rob Marshall's flashy musical Chicago took home Best Picture at the 2003 ceremony over Martin Scorsese's sprawling historical epic Gangs of New York, and film historians view the decision as emblematic of the Academy's preference for surface pleasures over substantive cinema.
You're supposed to say, and the Oscar goes to.
And the winner is...
Chicago!
Chicago won 6 Oscars that night, powered by its entertaining musical numbers and show-stopping performances. The film is a crowd-pleaser, colorful, energetic, and immediately accessible, and it revived the movie musical genre while delighting audiences with its razzle-dazzle approach to the story of fame, murder, and manipulation in 1920s Chicago. Gangs of New York represented Scorsese operating at massive historical scale. Set in 1860s New York, the film was an ambitious exploration of immigration, violence, and the brutal birth of the American city, and it featured Daniel Day-Lewis delivering one of his most memorable performances as Bill the Butcher Cutting, while showcasing production design and historical detail that created an immersive vision of a vanished world. Film scholars note that while Chicago is entertaining, it's fundamentally lightweight, a musical that prioritizes spectacle over substance and executes its genre well, without demanding much from its audience beyond enjoying the performances and musical numbers. Gangs of New York is far superior filmmaking in terms of ambition, scope, and lasting impact. The film attempts something genuinely difficult by recreating a crucial moment in American history with attention to period detail while also crafting a personal revenge narrative within that larger historical canvas. And the scope is epic, the violence unflinching, and the exploration of American nativism and immigrant struggle remains relevant. Critics identify this win as exemplifying the Academy's tendency to reward films that are immediately accessible and entertaining over works that demand more from their audiences. Chicago dazzles and delights, while Gangs of New York challenges and provokes, and the Academy chose dazzle. For Scorsese, this represented yet another in a long line of losses for superior work. He had already been passed over for Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and Goodfellas, and he wouldn't win Best Director until 2007 for The Departed. widely viewed by film historians as a consolation prize for his earlier masterpieces rather than recognition of his best work. The loss of Gangs of New York to Chicago remains particularly painful in retrospect because it represents the Academy's consistent preference for entertainment over art, spectacle over substance, and immediate pleasure over lasting significance.
To defeat my enemy, I extinguish his life and consume him as I consume these flames. I took him under my wing, and see how I'm repaid, so he can kill me the next like a sneak thief, instead of fighting like a man.
How Green Was My Valley versus Citizen Kane. Then there's the original sin, the most notorious upset in Oscar history that established the template for every controversial decision that would follow. Orson Welles' Citizen Kane was nominated for 9 Academy Awards in 1942. The film revolutionized cinematography with its deep focus techniques, shattered narrative conventions with non-linear storytelling, and redefined what sound design could accomplish in cinema. And today it tops the American Film Institute's list of the greatest American films ever made. Film schools around the world use it as the definitive textbook example of cinematic innovation. The film won exactly 1 Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, and the winner of Best Picture was John Ford's How Green Was My Valley, a competent, sentimental drama about Welsh coal miners that film historians regard as well-crafted within traditional parameters, but now remembered primarily for one reason. It's the movie that beat Citizen Kane. Film scholars have extensively documented that this wasn't an accident of taste, but the result of a coordinated political attack by one of the most powerful men in America. Citizen Kane was a thinly veiled portrayal of media tycoon William Randolph Hearst, and Hearst launched a scorched earth campaign against the film by refusing to run advertisements for it in his newspaper empire and threatening to blacklist any studio that exhibited it. The atmosphere at the 1942 ceremony was openly hostile, and reports from the event indicate that whenever Citizen Kane was announced as a nominee, audible boos erupted from the audience. The 25-year-old Welles, who had been given unprecedented creative control, was seen by many in the industry as an arrogant outsider who needed to be put in his place. And the industry, terrified of Hearst's power to destroy careers and resentful of the boy genius who had stormed Hollywood with radical ideas, rallied around Ford's film as a defensive measure. Ford was a Hollywood veteran, a known quantity, and his film represented traditional craftsmanship rather than revolutionary innovation. Film historians identify this decision as proof that politics and fear can override undeniable artistic genius, and this wasn't about which film was better, because everyone recognized Kane's innovations. What it was about was protecting the establishment and punishing an outsider who dared to attack one of the most powerful men in America. How Green Was My Valley remains a respected classic of sentimental filmmaking within its genre, but its victory over Kane is what scholars call the Academy's original sin, the moment that established that the Oscars would consistently choose safety over greatness when power and politics were involved. Every controversial decision that followed can trace its lineage back to this moment when the Academy flinched.
Orson Welles has been considered both difficult and unemployable. 30 years ago, Orson Welles received from the Academy what he liked to call half an Oscar for the script of Citizen Kane. Tonight, the Academy is honored to give him an Oscar all his own.
If you like this analysis, you'll love where I go next. Click the video on your screen and find out.